25, breaks a couple of tackles, and look at him go! He could go all the way! Touchdown!
Winning is not a sometimes. It's an always. Winning is a habit.
What's up, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of Gut Check Podcast. We are up bright and early talking NFC South today. As always, I'm with my good friend and co-host Seth Floyd Hansen. How you doing this morning, man?
I don't know. You tell me how I'm doing. I'm
Not
good.
Sponsored.
Not sponsored. That was a free plug. You're welcome. No, I'm good. Good, man. Just grinding away. We're almost done with official teaching, so that means a lot of hot days out in the sun coming soon, which will be fun. But good. Ready to get this thing going.
Yeah, we just get closer and closer to some more sports. We're still in that lull of everything, but as May starts to wind down, we head into June, July. A lot of talk about at least baseball coming back. If baseball can come back, then OTAs, training camp for football, can come back.
Sure.
So we're getting closer, getting more exciting.
California announced, Gavin Newsom announced that he thinks by June 1st you could have sports with no fans, which is the complete opposite of what he said like a month ago. A month ago he was saying there will be no sports without a vaccine. So imagine if you have fan or sports with no fans by June 1st, then by September you should have you theoretically would have some fans in the stands, even if it's not packed to capacity. So a lot of positive stuff out there.
Yeah, and I'll say I woke up pretty early on Saturday, watched the German soccer league because they're back in action, playing in Germany, but without fans, taking some extra precautions as well. You know, like coaches have masks on the sidelines and everybody on the sideline has masks. So it's definitely weird to watch, but if anybody out there is just hesitant of what it's going to be like without fans, just give it a shot. It's full soccer. There's nothing different. They're playing hard. They're competitive, but you just don't have the crowd cheering, which I think in soccer is huge because you have sort of the build up towards the goal. You know, as they get closer and closer to scoring, the crowd gets louder, and that definitely helps. But at the end of the day, it was a soccer game. It was good. It was fun to watch, and I needed that.
Yeah. Hey, do you have a Bundesliga team because you spent so much time in Germany?
So there was a team where I lived. They were like the second league, so they weren't the top league.
Oh, okay.
It was Kaiserslautern.
Uh-huh.
So if I have to pick a team, I would pick them. But I think Dortmund would be my Bundesliga team. And so that's who I watched on Saturday. So that was pretty cool.
Not to derail this podcast, I always want to go all in on this soccer thing, and I can't ever decide if I like I live in or just outside of Dallas now, so I want to be an FC Dallas fan. I want to have a Premier League team. I just have a hard time in the Premier League. Like, they don't have a playoff system, and it's hard for me to get excited about that kind of deal. So,
well, okay, so yes, we're gonna derail momentarily.
Perfect.
Because now's the perfect time to jump into it, right? Because you don't have any other distractions of American sports, so you can try to get into it, right? And they do have a playoff system, and I think the biggest hurdle that American fans have to get over is obviously the time difference, but besides that is the inter-season tournaments that they have. So the Premier League, and then they do the UEFA Championships, or which just happens right in the middle. But that's awesome because that's the best club teams throughout Europe playing against each other, and that totally disrupts the Premier League season or the Bundesliga season. So you have to kind of get around that and know what's going on. But then the Premier League does have the Champions League, and then they do sort of have a playoff for that. And then you have relegation, which if you're the bottom
the relegation.
4 teams or two or 4 teams, right? Yeah, so you go down. That's a huge thing too. So another shameless plug for Netflix series called Sunderland or Die.
Uh-huh.
So if you need a Premier League team, you can root for Sunderland because they already have a Netflix documentary about how they were like relegated and then they fight their way back into the Premier League. So it's pretty cool.
Clearly, I've touched on something I didn't know about you, that you were like this so passionate about soccer, which is cool because I mean anytime the World Cup comes around, like I'm all about it. Like I'll watch everything because I think international soccer is awesome. I haven't jumped on the like I said, I'd love to be a big MLS fan on something, but it just feels different. But soccer for sure is making a surge in our country. For like the last 10 years, it's been slowly getting more. And FIFA has been a big part of that. Again, that's a whole different thing. But anyway, good to know. Maybe I'll look into it. I'll look into it because I do have time on my hands, so I'll look into it.
Yeah, I think now's the time for Americans, especially. Like just suck it up and start watching. It's sports. You'll find out that you love it. So
sure, good to know.
But the other football we're going to talk about today, NFC South, jumping into that right now. And there's a lot going on in this division. Obviously, the biggest news is Tom Brady moving to Tampa Bay Gronkaneers, as you called them.
Yeah.
But you got Drew Brees. You got Drew Brees coming back. Falcons reloading with Todd Gurley and some other pieces, and then Carolina complete rebuild now with Teddy Bridgewater, Matt Rule, and Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator. So really just jumping in right away. We'll start it off with Carolina. As I mentioned, in a rebuild mode. They're predicted over under 5.5 wins. How are you feeling about Carolina?
Like for this season, I mean, 5.5 wins. Like I don't think I see them getting to 6 wins. Like I feel like I would take the under. Part of that is because of how good the division is. That's actually a big part of it. You have to play 6 games against these teams that are pretty good. But I think they had a good draft. I think that Matt Rule and went in with the right mindset. Like I'm gonna establish the defense, even though he's such an offensive guy. But with their first 2 picks, getting Derek Brown, and then what's his name? Modest, the guy from Penn State.
Yeah, Yetur Gross-Matos.
Gross-Matos, that's what it is, Gross-Matos.
Yeah.
And a lot of people had him sneaking into the end of the first round. So they got him in the second round, 2 potential starters right away, which again, if I'm like when I'm evaluating NFL drafts, like I'm evaluating how many starters did you get. And that they're both going to contribute right away. So that's really good. Teddy Bridgewater is like a good decision maker. And that's kind of what you need in like a rebuild. They're not gonna push for anything really. So you don't want a guy who's just letting it fly down the field. Like you want a guy who can kind of stabilize what you're doing on offense. You still have Christian McCaffrey, which is good. The problem is for me between like roster turnover, like they're definitely in a rebuild. You don't have Cam anymore, but also like what is Matt Rule gonna be? And like Matt Rule was great at Baylor, but we know that it doesn't always translate to the NFL. And I just think there's too much unknown. You lost Luke Kuechly, like that's a huge thing. Like Luke Kuechly retiring is obviously going to hurt you. So there's just a lot of unknown with Carolina. They don't have any pressure on them. Like nobody expects them to do anything. So maybe that helps. And maybe Matt Rule comes in like a Jim Harbaugh did when he came to the Niners. Like who knows? But I just wouldn't plan on it. I definitely wouldn't plan on it. And with how good the division is, I feel like it's below 5.5. That's what I would say, about 5. That's what I would think. And with their ceiling being at 6, I can't see them winning more than 6 games.
Yeah. I'm gonna go on record to say 5 and 11. I think, like you said, the biggest thing you have the unknowns with the roster turnover and the coaching turnover, and then it's a very tough division. I'll do a quick shout out to Buddy Kraft, Carolina Panthers fan who listens. He's going through a tough time right now. He's a little uncertain about how his team, he's maybe even shopping around for other teams. But I'll say out to him and all those Panther fans out there, like, give it some time, because I think this model might work. Matt Rule kind of came out of nowhere, but he turned around Temple and he turned around Baylor very quickly. And don't sleep on Joe Brady. I mean, so much credit went to Joe Burrow. and even Ed Orgeron for what they did in LSU. But like Joe Brady, right? He was that man. He was that man that really orchestrated Joe Burrow's season and made him into a Heisman-winning quarterback. So I think that can translate. He comes from the Sean Payton coaching tree, who's obviously a great coach. I think he can be in the right system. He can work with Teddy Bridgewater, who also came out of Sean Payton's system. So I'm not saying it's going to happen this year, but it can happen maybe in the next 2 to 3 years. I think this might be an interesting combo to watch because Teddy Bridgewater absolutely can be a starting quarterback in this league. I think he just had that devastating injury after a very promising rookie year. He did nothing but win when he was in New Orleans as the backup. So I think it could work. CMC all-pro guy. So yeah, you have a lot to replace on defense, including an all-pro linebacker, all-world linebacker, if you want to go that high and say that, which is fair. But they drafted completely on defense. This 2020 draft, all draft picks were on defense, which is a little interesting. But I get that that's where they need to start, and I think these pieces will develop. Matt Rule will turn the system around. I think he is the right guy to just start a rebuild mode, and then Joe Brady's going to be able to use the weapons that they have, be creative with it. And yeah, I say not this year, but next year we could be talking about them fighting for a wild card spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. What I like of what Matt Rule is doing, and I'm assuming like what Joe Brady is doing as well, like they're on the same page, is it's the same reason like Shanahan talked about taking Javon Kinlaw where they did instead of going with CeeDee Lamb or one of the wide receivers on the board still was like Shanahan fully believes offense is mostly about scheme, and I can scheme guys open, but defense is about talent. Defense is about guys who can just play. And so that's clearly what they're employing. And it kind of makes me feel like Matt Rule and Joe Brady, like they know something the rest of us don't, or that they're just very confident what they have. I mean, they must be licking their chops knowing they have Christian McCaffrey. And they signed Robbie Anderson. They still have DJ Moore. Like, so it's not a completely barren offense. And so maybe they'll surprise a lot of people. I don't know. Like I wouldn't put money on it, but you never know. You see that kind of thing in the NFL from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting little note about Shanahan saying I can scheme offense to work, but I need talent on defense. Because I bet if you ask Bill Belichick that same thing, he may have a different take because it seems like he schemes on defense to make it work. If you guys are doing your job,
Yeah. It's true.
Just interesting how coaches see it differently.
Yeah.
So the next team, Atlanta Falcons coming in over under 7.5 or 7, depends on where we look. We like to take the lines with the half if we can get them. So there's no push. So Atlanta 7.5. This seems about right, but again, you still have Matt Ryan, still have Julio Jones, and then now you have Todd Gurley to complement in that offense. Coming off some injuries and kind of a down year, but Todd Gurley when healthy. So how do you feel about the Falcons?
I mean, they've played really well at the end of the year last year. They kind of started to surge. I mean, they had the big win over the 49ers on the road. I don't know what to make of it because I don't know how I feel about Dan Quinn. I think that he for sure saved his job, like rightfully so. I didn't think he should be fired at the end of the year. I mean, he took him to the Super Bowl. The team started playing for him at the end of the year. I don't know. I don't know. Their first pick was AJ Terrell out of Clemson, the cornerback, who I think is really good. So I think that was pretty good. But I mean, they had some turnover. If you look at their free agency, they didn't have any big signings really. They lost Austin Hooper. They did sign Dante Fowler, depending on how you feel about him. He was productive for the Rams. I want to know, like, how big of a signing is the Todd Gurley signing, aside from, like, for sure every game's going to be sold out because the state of Georgia loves him so much, but, like, what is the impact there? You cut Devontae Freeman and add with Todd Gurley. Like, is that much of an upgrade?
I mean, it's tough to say because it's all dependent on his health. If he's healthy, yeah, it's an upgrade. But that's kind of a big if. You don't always know if he's going to be able to produce week in and week out. Because I think if you get Todd Gurley on your team, you need him to be your workhorse, whether it's running between the tackles or whether it's out in screen and pass games. Like, you need to get him touches because he's an impact player. But if he's not healthy, if he can't give you that week in and week out, then it's really not much, and you probably would have been better off with Freeman. So, yeah, I think the Falcons are going all in with that. And if they can make it to the playoffs with him, that's kind of saving Dan Quinn's job. And this might be that kind of last thing, like, all right, we'll make this final push. Let's see what you got, Dan. Otherwise, we'll move on without you.
Sure. I agree. I think if you get 16 games out of Gurley, or even 14, let's say, like that's an upgrade. And I don't think they're going to limit him. I don't think they signed him to like ease him into this thing. He doesn't have much like prime. Like, I would still say he's in his prime. He's still pretty young. And they're going to get the most out of it. So on paper, it looks real good. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Todd Gurley. I think that he's going to get his touches. I don't think they might limit a lot of his between the tackle touches, but I expect him to be involved in the pass game. A lot of off tackle plays, that type of deal. I don't know, man. Like, I really want to take the over. I really want to say they'll get to 8 games, maybe more. Like, I think Atlanta is a possible candidate for that 7th seed, that inaugural 7th seed that we're going to have this season. But it would take a healthy Todd Gurley, and it would take, like, Matt Ryan's never bad, but he's definitely not like that MVP year. Again, like, I know I'm the biggest 49er homer, and I love Shanahan, but I mean, that MVP year, like, Shanahan was calling the plays, and that offense just it's different than Steve Sarkisian is still calling the plays over there, isn't he?
As far as I know, yeah.
I think it's so anyway. So, like, that's just different. So, like, what do you get out of Matt Ryan? I think a Todd Gurley who can be productive will help. And I guess I'll take the over. I'll say 8-8. If they can push forward, like, and build off of what they did at the end of the season last year, then I'm like pretty confident in them. But it's just there's a lot of unknown because of how disappointing they were for a lot of the season last year.
Yeah. So I'll officially take the under at 7-9, but I think they are a team that has one of the wider spreads. They could go, I mean, heck, they could go 6-10 and they can go 10-6, and I don't think I would be that shocked. A 6-10 would be like, oh, too many unknowns. They didn't put it together. 10-6, be like, okay, the talent worked, and they figured it out. But it wouldn't be something shocking. One of the other reasons I want to go with the under here is their road slate is extremely tough here. So looking at it, they get Chiefs, Packers, Vikings, Chargers, and Cowboys all on the road.
Wow. All those non-division games on the road. Jeez.
Exactly. Not to mention you still have to play Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and even Carolina on the road, right? So that's tough. 8 games on the road. I mean, you could go 1-7 on the road there, and then you're doomed. So it's a tough slate for the Falcons. We'll see what they can do. I do think this is sort of the last season with Dan Quinn to see if he can put it all together. If this offense doesn't pop, it's got to be Sarkisian's last stop. He's got every weapon in his arsenal now. So if he can't put it together, if they can't do something, then they got to move on from him at the very least. So, yeah, I'll go 7-9. The schedule's tough, a lot of unknowns, but certainly should be an interesting team to watch.
Yeah. No, I don't have any disagreements there other than I guess I'm just confident in the talent, and I'm confident that Dan Quinn does know what he's doing, and last year, like, just must have just gotten away from him early in the season for whatever reason, but I got to think that they figured something out late in the season and that they'll be able to continue and, like, build off of that. But I don't know, man. It's tough to see a team like fall from grace like they have when they they haven't lost any major pieces, I don't think, unless your quarterback's still there, your top 3 wide receiver, in the NFL is still there. So it's just crazy to see, but it's a tough division, man, especially these next 2 teams we're going to talk about.
Yeah. And I will say, so they lost Austin Hooper, but they traded for Hayden Hurst, who wasn't super productive in Baltimore. But he kind of got overshadowed by Mark Andrews there in Baltimore. And I like Hayden Hurst. I think when he did get some time, he was pretty productive, although limiting. So I think, Austin Hooper wasn't some big name that kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know that he's necessarily a star. I think he just worked in their system. So I think Hayden Hurst could be a good replacement for them there.
I'm positive, like, letting Austin Hooper walk was the right thing, especially for how much he got paid by Cleveland. He's the largest contract for a tight end in NFL history, Austin Hooper, which is just mind-boggling. Yeah. Just the one downfall is, like, he knew the system, but I'm sure that Hurst can pick it up. So that's good to know.
Yeah. Talking about learning systems, we got one of the biggest turnovers with this next team. Tampa Bay coming in over under. We have them at 9, or we'll go 9.5 to take the half. Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski reuniting in Tampa Bay with Bruce Arians and offense coordinator Byron Leftwich, which still just is crazy to think that he's an offensive coordinator. And not too long ago, I was watching him with the Jaguars, it seems. But new coach, new system for Tom Brady, new quarterback in Tampa Bay taking the reins. Obviously, with this shortened off season or this disrupted off season, there can be some questions. So, are you taking the over on Tampa Bay?
I am, but there's question marks, obviously, but I am, because just the Bucs were 7-9 last year with Jameis throwing 30 interceptions. It was Bruce Arians' first year in Tampa Bay, so it was a new system for that whole team. And so everybody else has been there. You're just plugging in the quarterback. Now, the things that could derail what they're doing, the biggest one that comes to mind is what is he going to look like? Because at some point he's going to drop off. Because Brady, to me, if everything he said, he's not like a Michael Jordan where he's gonna retire when he has something left in the tank. Like, that's not the vibe I get from Brady. Which means his last season is going to be something that drops off, and who knows when that's going to be. I don't know if it'll be this year. But because they won 7 games with Jameis last year, like, I feel like 8 wins has to be their floor. Just because I can't imagine a Tom Brady-led team with a good coach, Bruce Arians, and with all those weapons, like, not winning as many games as Jameis did. So I'm going to take the over, and I think they get to 10 wins. But the season is going to look pretty up and down for them. Like, they're the kind of team that I think they're going to, through 10 games, they're going to be like 5-5. And then for the last 6 games, they're going to go 5-1 and get really hot, and they're going to get one of the wild card playoff spots, simply because, like, it takes time to start clicking. And, like, football it's not like basketball, even though basketball, we've seen it's taken time with some of these super teams.
Sure.
But football is so much about repetition and trusting guys and making sure the system works that it takes a good part of a season, especially without OTAs and everything this year, it looks like. And who knows, like, they might be able to get some sort of OTA or mini camp in there, whatever. But, like, there's this weird off season. It just feels like it's going to slow down this whole process. So I think they get to 10 wins, and I think they're a team that in the second half of the season, you're going to say, watch out, like, you don't want to play them in the playoffs because they got hot all of a sudden.
Yeah. So I could see that in the second half. So my thing is, I don't know what their defense is going to be able to do. Yes, they were 7-9. We think it's an upgrade with Tom Brady in that offense. He's not going to turn the ball over as much as Jameis Winston did. I guess I'm going to take the under. I'm going to say 9-7 is kind of where they are. I saw this Madden and the Check Down are doing a simulation of the 2020 season, and they had Tampa Bay at 8-0 halfway through the season,
Yeah.
which obviously is crazy. Yeah, so just looking at the stats, the biggest thing you get with Tom Brady is he's not going to turn the ball over and he's not going to get sacked, but he doesn't push the ball down the field like Jameis Winston did, and I think that's what that offense thrived off of, right?
Sure,
so Tom Brady's average completion was 6 yards down the field, where Jameis Winston's was 8.5, and this is over their past 2 seasons, where Tom Brady's just not throwing the ball down the field much. And then the other thing, we talk about the upgrades on offense. They haven't made a lot of upgrades on defense, and that defense was 29th in the league for points against. So, yeah, you may be able to stay in the game, which is what Jameis Winston was able to do on offense, but that defense isn't going to slow anybody down. And you're just like we said, you're playing in a tough division where you're going against the Saints twice. You're going against the Falcons, who have a high-powered offense. Carolina with Teddy Bridgewater and CMC obviously can do some damage on offense. So, yeah, I don't know that I'm ready to jump on this Tampa Bay bandwagon. I think they are a better team ultimately with Tom Brady. He's not going to drop off completely yet. So I'll officially go 9-7. But I'll pose the question to you.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think is going to fare better when it's all said and done, Bill Belichick or Tom Brady, now that they've split?
Like, that's kind of the unknown too. What if Tom comes out and is just trash? Like, what if he's so bad and it was Bill the whole time? Like, I don't think that'll happen, but I'm gonna side with the coach, dude. Like, and it's not 100% because Tom, like, credit to Tom, like, he took on the system that they're running in New England. He mastered it. He knows every read. He knows exactly what to look for in every play. But Tom had nothing to do with the defense. Like, that's Bill. And Bill sets that culture. And I'll take culture over everything in football for the most part. I mean, like, if I have to choose one, like, that, the culture is going to produce the longevity for your team. And so the Patriots aren't going to be bad this year. They might be bad by Patriot standards, but they're going to be a tough out for everybody who plays. But the Patriots aren't going to mail it in and win 4 games this year. I don't think. I think they're going to be more. And so fair better. Like, Tom, I think Tom's going to have a better record than the Patriots this year. But at the end of this year, I'm not going to be like, oh, see, it was all Tom Brady, like some of these yahoos are going to freaking post out there. But I think Tom's going to such a good situation, like weapons-wise. He is. And Bruce Arians is a good coach. It's not like, hey, we have all these weapons, but our head coach is Freddie Kitchens. Like, it's not that deal, you know? So,
I'll
like,
kick a man while he's down. I
know. Well, whatever, dude. I just am what I am. So I also, like, I think I'm higher on Tampa Bay's defense because I really like Todd Bowles. I think Todd Bowles is a good defensive coordinator. The one thing that everyone is overplaying this year about Tampa Bay is Gronkowski. Like, I'm not, like, is Gronkowski better than O.J. Howard? I don't know. You know why I don't know? Because Bruce Arians doesn't use his tight end anyway. Like, his system is never known for throwing to the tight end. Yeah. And if I had to pick one, like, I would take O.J. Howard because he's younger and he's fresher, and Gronkowski is going to pull a Dennis Rodman and go in the middle of the season and go to Vegas, and you know what I mean? Like, he loves to party, and, like, I don't blame him for that. I'm just saying, like, if you think you're getting what Gronkowski was in New England, you're crazy, because you're not. Gronkowski might just be situational too, for all that we know. Like, he might not play as much as he did before, and you just throw him in the red zone and he'll score a lot of touchdowns because they're in the red zone. But I don't know. Like, I think you have to rely on, you have Mike Evans and you've got Chris Godwin, who are both number 1 wide receivers, and they both play on the same team. So that's really good. But too many people are hyping up the Gronkowski thing, and I just think he's going to be a shell of himself.
Yeah. So the reason I phrased the question I did with who do you think will fare better, because I tried to make it sound like, who at the end of the day are you going to look at and say, okay, they were the one that's responsible for the success, you know? So it's not necessarily, you know, better record at the end of this, but who do you think is going to look better or fare better? And I agree. I think it's going to be Bill Belichick when it's all said and done. I'll say kind of rooting for that. I think I want it to be the coach that comes out on top over Tom Brady here. But this is so interesting because it's like one of the few times we truly get to see this happen, where so much turnover happened in New England except for head coach and quarterback, and they were so successful. And so now you finally have that split. And what is it all going to come down to? Did Tom Brady just become a master of that system and make Belichick look good? Or did Belichick is he the wizard that made Tom Brady what he is? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Definitely the storyline and definitely the reason why Tampa Bay is having 5 prime time games this season for sure.
Do you think Tampa Bay makes the playoffs? Sorry.
So with an extra wild card seed at 9 and 7, I don't think they do. So I'll say no.
Interesting.
If they can get to 10 and 6, I think they can make it.
I think I don't with that 7 seed. I don't think 10 and 6 teams are ever missing out on the playoffs. Ever again. So
and I guess now that I think about it, one team out of the East is going to make it. I think 2 in the West and 2 in the North. So okay, I could see it happening because you're going to get 2 from. If you get 1 in the East, then you're going to get 2 in the others, right, or something to that effect. So
sure.
Yeah, I guess they could at the 7th. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be a fight for all these like 9 and 7 spots because I think there could be a few teams fighting between 8 and 8 and 10 and 6. You know who's going to come out on top for those 3 wild cards. So all right, I could see it happening at 9 and 7.
I'll tell you this: if they don't make the playoffs, Tom is gonna get hammered. He's gonna get hammered. And like anyone, like I don't know, any realistic fan like knows, hey, we like a new system and everything, like that's like it can take time, but no one's gonna care about any of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Tom's gonna get hammered if he doesn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, he's expected to come in there and win right away. So you have to do better than Jameis Winston. And like we said, Jameis Winston got him to 7 and 9. And everyone's really looking at Jameis Winston. Just says if you didn't turn the ball over maybe like 5 fewer times, you could have been 9 and 7 as well. You didn't have to do that much differently. I mean, he threw. I don't have it in front of me, but he threw several pick sixes, which turned the tide of the game. So, yeah, it'll definitely be interesting there.
Definitely.
So it looks like we will both agree then with this last team, at least, who is going to come out on top of the NFC South. So the New Orleans Saints over under, we got them at 10.5 right here. So 10.5. They were 13-3 last year. How are you feeling on New Orleans?
So I think New Orleans is going to win the division. I think they're clearly the best team. I don't know if I see them as being better than last year. I think they were a really good team last year. I really do. That playoff game was wild that they lost. But I don't – it just sounds like Drew Brees mentally is like on his way out. He's already signed that deal with NBC to take over Sunday Night Football. Like, that's not a good sign if you're a Saints fan that like mentally he's already there, especially because he just signed a 2-year contract. But in his head, this sounds like the last ride for Drew Brees. And I mean, adding Emmanuel Sanders is a big deal. He's a really good receiver. I mean, I was really sad the Niners didn't re-sign him, but I understand why, because you have other guys you have to pay. And with him not having to be a number 1 out there, like it's a really good signing for the Saints. But my question is Drew Brees. Now he's not gonna fall off. He's still gonna be a very good quarterback. But I don't know if I see them being better than what they were. So I think 11 wins is probably their ceiling. I think that I think that Tampa Bay, New Orleans, like it's going to be a fairly close race for the division for most of the season. I would take New Orleans to win it, but I don't know if I see them being better, like I said. So
Yeah, so I'll pick the over as well, with 11-5 being my official pick there, so that they win the division. Not a real competition for them to be the number 1 seed, getting that by any means. And yeah, so Drew Brees was hurt last year. Teddy Bridgewater came in, didn't just hold the ship afloat, but I mean he was undefeated in those games that Drew Brees was out. I know you're a big Taysom Hill guy. I like him as well. The way he fits in the system has been fun to watch, and he's done some great things. But if Drew Brees goes down and you have Taysom Hill as your only quarterback, and he's got to, he can't just play gadget plays. He's got to come in there and run that offense. I'm a little more hesitant on. I don't know if he's ready for that. Now, of course, you did pick up Jameis Winston as your backup. Is Jameis Winston as good as Teddy Bridgewater if Drew Brees goes down? Because I think that's a question you have to ask now with Brees' injury history and his age. Are you going to get a full season out of him? And if you don't get a full season, how are you going to be able to keep the ship afloat? So, and then the other stat I want to throw out there, which is just too funny not to mention, your 2 backup quarterbacks now, Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston has more touchdown passes, has more passes completed to New Orleans Saints players than Taysom Hill does. Winston has completed 10 passes to the Saints, while Hill has only completed 7. And that's with Winston never throwing a pass in a Saints jersey before. So
gotcha.
We'll see if that can translate.
Yeah, I mean, if Taysom Hill has to be your guy, like your offense is gonna be much different. Like it's just gonna look so much different. So that better not happen. Like if you're a Saints fan, you hope not. Like I love Taysom Hill. I love everything he stands for, and like he's like a coach's dream, like a guy who's just willing to do anything. Yeah. But he's not a guy I want to like hand the reins over to for sure. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that wraps up our takes right there for the NFC South. Should be a fun division. You're going to see a lot of them on national television thanks to Tampa Bay and Tom Brady, and the Saints always draw a crowd as well. So it'll be fun to watch. Buddy, again, hang in there with Carolina. Give them a chance this year. Just brave the storm, and I think there's light at the end of the tunnel there for Carolina. The rest of these teams should be fun as well. Fans, hey, feel free to give us some feedback. We love hearing from you guys. Leave a comment. If you're not subscribed to us either on Apple Podcasts or YouTube, we'd love it if you subscribed. We try to put out 2 episodes a week right now during quarantine, but the days change. So if you're subscribed to us, it'll pop up right away, and we'd appreciate it.
Yeah. But we appreciate you guys, and we will catch you next time.